Hello, this is Nicole, the host of Haunted Mid-Atlantic Tales. This is our 8th edition. It's a special tribute in the beginning and overall because, as you know, I have a very high affinity for the supernatural part of life. My family has as well. They've always been kind of, you could say, blessed with the sixth sense and connection to the other side, the afterlife, whether we have already passed on or while we're still here. I have a letter that I wrote for my Uncle Wendell that I would like to read for him to pay homage to a spirit that's very near and dear to me, even though we've never met very often when he was alive. Dear Uncle Wendell, I wish we spent more time together, but I'm still happy to be your family. These are times of triumph and loss, like you who will be dearly missed. Will you be with our other kinfolk and looked after, like Black Panther? I'm hoping so. And please know that love is always here, that we are always here, Black together. You shine in memory, the lives of everyone who cares about you. I love you, as you knew me. Of Letting Go, for me, is this wonderful series about the different ways that we can connect to our loved ones, to ghosts, to non-human entities, as I've described them before, and residual hauntings and visitations. How do you describe how the tether of love keeps people who normally would already have passed on to the terrestrial plane? Why is there an overlap in the first place? Were they joined at some point? Were they together, like the Legend of Korra? Harmonic convergence is something that was once the ancient world, and in times of chaos, but also of extreme spiritual awakening, where revolution is everywhere that you look, and artivism is many people's lifeblood, and how they champion their ancestry and their heritage in the face of supremacy. And perhaps it's our time and our duty to find out why. The Ghost of Virginia. Chapter 21, Folios of Valley Folklore. The Shenandoah Valley, a mountainous range throughout the state of Virginia. The Ghost with a Mission. This legend, collected by Smith, Elmer L. Smith, a folklorist and a historian, puts a different twist on a common folklore theme. Out near Burnville, there lived a small old male woman, all alone in a little frame house. And every night when she retired, she lighted her kerosene lamp and kept it burning throughout the night. One evening shortly after midnight, she heard someone come up the stairs, take away the kerosene lamp, and walk down into the cellar with it. About 20 minutes later, it returned with the lamp, put it back where it normally sat, vanished. You can imagine the fright and the horror that possessed this woman when she saw this. Perhaps I'm dreaming, she thought. But night after night, the ghost appeared, following the same pattern. The woman was afraid to tell anyone of this, fearing that they might think that she was senile or possibly mentally unstable. And finally, weak from fright, she went to her neighbors and told them what she had seen. They told her that when the ghost appeared again for the kerosene lamp, that she should follow. If the ghost stopped and turned to her, that she should not be frightened, but to ask in God's name what they wanted. That night, lying in a cold sweat, the woman awaited the ghost's return. Promptly at the same time as it had always been before, it returned, picked up the lamp, and went down into the cellar again. As she was walking behind the ghost, it suddenly stopped, turning upon her as they reached the cellar. She stood her ground, however, and asked in God's name, as the neighbors had said, what the spirit wanted. The ghost said that she should get a shovel and dig at the spot at which he was standing. Getting the coal shovel and beginning to dig, she soon found several old tin cans filled with gold coins. The ghost then explained that men came to steal the gold which he had hidden, and when he couldn't reveal his hiding place, they killed him. That was why he could not rest until his secret was told. And after that, the ghost never came back. A Bilingual Premonition. One person told Smith in an interview, "My grandmother couldn't speak English at all. She spoke only Dutch. When she was ill, early one morning when she was on her deathbed, she said in clear English, 4 o'clock. She died at 4 o'clock that day. And it was the only time that she had ever spoke English." That's chilling. That's creepy. Wow. The only time that you speak another language, but it's foreshadowing of when you're going to pass away. Chapter 24, A Case of Divine Providence. A divine intervention. A curious item. There's a glebe house that was the home of the Reverend Archibald Roberts, who lived there during the Revolutionary War days. And on July 17th, 1781, British Colonel Bannister Tarleton had the house set on fire, but a timely rain put out all the flames, and accordingly, the house was named Providence. Chapter 26, Stark Fear on Ghost Hunts. The hunters hunted. It was a beautiful, cold night. We could hear the peepers and occasional bullfrogs and dogs across the river and the high water roaring across the river bank. We could hear it all clearly until we stepped over an invisible line into an alternate reality. Suddenly, there was no sound, nothing. And then we felt it. A hot, foul-smelling breeze blew into us, and we tried to walk away from it, but we couldn't. If we walked fast, it moved fast. If we stopped, it stopped. It blew into our clothing and our hair. A couple of our seasoned investigators began to feel nauseous. There was no escaping it. Something supernatural was tracking and tainting us with the silence and a god-awful smell. And as we looked up the trail, we could see that a strange fog surrounded us entirely, blocking our ability to see. Our dowsing rods were spinning so fast they were virtually uncontrollable, unusable. The EMF readers blinked furiously. Camera after camera failed. Our psychics agreed that there was something dark and menacing out there. What should we do? Then an unearthly voice screamed through the eerie silence. We looked into the direction of the sound and saw it move. It was gray, with a bonnet and a long trailing dress. 3 of us saw the same thing. Or did we? Were our minds playing tricks? Then there were footsteps crunching through the forest debris, just a few feet away from us. It was coming towards us, step by menacing step. We were too scared to move at this point. One of our members pulled out a knife for defense against the unknown. Then, as suddenly as it had become silent, the sounds returned. The air smelled fresh and clean again. The birds were there. We looked back over our shoulders and saw something glowing. It had been having fun with us. We had gone out to find the supernatural in this remote area in West Virginia. But it had found us first. Chapter 28, A Treasury of Shenandoah Lore. The Vanishing Bride. Gravel Springs was built early in the 1800s. One of its most recent owners, Mr. Farrar, saw the Gravel Springs bride there. Legend has it that every bride at the house, as she climbed the stairs on her wedding night, had her candle mysteriously blown out before she could reach the top of the stairs. One night after Mr. Farrar had gone to bed, he heard someone's high heels clicking up the stairs. So thinking it was Mrs. Farrar, he wasn't particularly concerned at all. He left the lights off. The footsteps approached his closed door, and it opened. But a bride entered the room, not Mrs. Farrar, and walked across to his dresser, which he started to look at, as if it were hers. It was a bright moonlit night, and he could see her quite clearly, a red-haired woman, in her early 20s, and quite pretty. He was startled. The ghost did not even enter his mind, at a shock. He just wondered who the strange woman even was, walking into his bedroom. So he switched on the lights and yelled, "What in the hell are you doing here?" To which the lovely bride vanished. Mr. Farrar still does not admit that ghosts exist, but has no explanation for what happened that night. And he does allow us how he wished he hadn't shouted at her, but had just watched to see what she was going to do, because the apparition never came back. Chapter 106, Historic Haunts from the Past. The Haunted Courthouse Bell. The following 3 counts are about humorous incidents involving non-ghosts. They're nevertheless entertaining. Recorded by Linwood Mitchell in Standardsville, July 15th, 1937, about 45 years ago. So, then, in the 1890s, 4 mischievous boys, bent on having some excitement, decided they'd ring the courthouse bell on the cupola at midnight. After finding a lot of twine, they climbed in the window of the courthouse, ascended the stairs to the jury room, climbed the ladder to the belfry, tied an end of the twine to the bell clapper, hid in a thicket about 300 yards away. Then they tolled the bell. Citizens in town were all excited, of course, because the bell was ringing at that time of night. They came running out into the street expecting to see a fire, with no fire in sight. The next move was to investigate why it even rang. So soon, the sheriff and several citizens went into the courthouse. But imagine their surprise when, upon opening the trap door to the belfry, they found the bell was perfectly still. The twine had broken off at the clapper, destroying all evidence. None had had the nerve to go up in the cupola to make further investigation, so they decided it was haunted. The matter was a mystery for several years, until the boys summoned up enough courage to tell the facts. Haunted Places by Dennis Hawk. Delaware is our first stop. Bethany Beach. The confused and tattered ghost of Eddie Rickenbacker has been seen along this stretch of beach. No one has determined why the naval hero haunts this beach. He even looks so bedraggled. Below Rehoboth, at the junction of Highway 1 and Highway 26. Newcastle, the old wooden docks. The ghosts of Dutch soldiers have been seen near the deserted remains of the old wooden boat docks here. One Dutchman marches up and down the shoreline in front of the docks. The ghosts are most often seen in the fall, after night. And the ruins are the south of town in the Newcastle Harbor, D.C. St. John's Church, aka the one that Trump decided to violently remove D.C. protesters from in the front of, were fighting for Black lives. Whenever a great American leader dies, the ghosts of 6 great Washingtonians, right, Washington, not D.C., appear at midnight in the pew of the presidents. They sit with their arms folded, looking straight ahead, as if paying their final respects, then disappear after a few minutes. The unique church, St. John's, built in 1821, has served as a place of worship for many presidents, which is why Trump wanted his photo op there, but we all know how that turned out. Lafayette Square in D.C., the corner of 16th and H. New Jersey. It's Cape May again. Kelty's News and Books. This is back in the 90s, but I'm sure it's still a store there. The ghostly sounds of women giggling, books that fly through the air, and the apparition of a man in a white coat are just a few of the inexplicable things that go on in this bookstore, Kelty's. The building's more than 140 years old, and was moved from a beachfront lot to its present location in a downtown mall. Apparition is thought to be Dr. Loomis, a dentist who once had an office in the building. Shenandoah River Valley. Shenandoah River. The ghost of Manonah, an Oneida Native American chief, appears regularly along the banks of the Shenandoah River on the Earlville-Poolville Road. The ghostly Native American's first appearance was May 2nd, 1830, when he warned settlers not to fish in the Shenandoah River. Then, May 2nd, 1880, Chief Manonah rose out of the mist to tell a fisherman that he was violating the Oneida sacred fishing grounds. By May 2nd of 1930, the word was out and the local fishermen were too afraid to fish the river at dusk at all. The same thing happened on May 2nd, 1980, about 150 years after the first sighting. Now maybe someone will have the guts to challenge the spirit of Manonah on May 2nd, 2030. New York City! New York, New York! Abigail Adams Smith Museum. Unexplainable footsteps and other strange noises have led some to speculate that Abigail Adams Smith still walks the halls of her former home. Abigail Adams Smith Museum is on 421 East 64th Street, New York. Francis House. Both Aaron Burr's attempt to become president of the U.S. in 1800 and his run for governor in New York 4 years later were foiled by his powerful archenemy, Alexander Hamilton. The two men's hatred for one another came to a head on July 4th, 1804. Yeah, Independence Day, when they faced each other in an infamous pistol duel. Hamilton was mortally wounded, as we know, and taken to the home of his physician, John Francis. His doctor's house became the site of the famous Patriot's funeral. And although the original quarters no longer stand there, some residents at the apartment building say it is haunted. Houdini House. The ghost of magician and psychic investigator Harry Houdini is seen in his former New York apartment. before he died on October 31st, 1926. Wow, on Halloween Day. He left secret code words with several people, whom he promised to contact from beyond the grave. North Carolina, Hickory Nut Gorge, Chimney Rock. Cherokee legends spoke of mysterious flying little people who inhabit this entire gorge. The first recorded sighting by white men was in 1806. Another sighting occurred in 1811, and sporadic encounters have occurred ever since. The little people are described as short, white-robed figures who float around the mountainside near Chimney Rock. Witnesses report feeling slightly exhausted, though strangely at peace, after seeing the creatures in the Hickory Nut Gorge, which is in the Pisgah National Forest in western North Carolina. Virginia, Fredericksburg, Monroe Law Office. The ghosts of James Monroe and Thomas Jefferson were seen walking through the front door of this building in the late 1960s. The sighting is said to have coincided with the appearance of a large crack in the front door of the building, where Monroe practiced law from 1786 to 1789.